Okay, to reply.
By the way, I'm not bothered. I like this. I have 3 responses. See, because I've made 3 responses, I just don't number them. But that's great. I think that's super. Okay, a few responses here. He says, at least 2. He says, the body decomposed, I don't think we would recognize it. Totally misses the point. Today, empty tomb is the position of the vast majority of New Testament scholars. I recently took 23 arguments for the empty tomb from the critical side. And he says, well, look, come on. Your own book says 40 days before the first preaching, wouldn't the body have decomposed? Let me tell you something. Here, this is not the Christian message. There's a body in that tomb, it's decomposed, you won't be able to tell who it is, therefore we're going to say Jesus has been raised from the dead. The proclamation is the tomb is empty. Here's the point, watch carefully. If there's any body in the tomb, Christians die. I'm sorry, Christian claims lose. Christians might die too. So if you have a corpse there and there's holes in the wrists and the feet, you can't make the face out because I just mean any body would upset the claim. And he said no evidence that any disciples might have recanted. David Koresh. We don't have one lick of evidence that a disciple recanted. I'd say produce a first century source and I'll entertain it. There aren't any.
Okay. Can we have now a genuine 100% question for the proposition? Gentleman towards the back.
Hi, I'd like to start off on a lighter note by asking Dr. Ahmed if 3 is his lucky number or something. And moving along. Now, for the proposition, you've spent the entire evening and you haven't answered any of the questions he's tried to put before you. Let's be honest about it. And I think I know why. Essentially, Dr. Ahmed here, he starts off with a collection of rather simple assumptions. He tries to make deductions from them. And that's not how you like to think. You like to sort of limit yourself to a collection of end products. And then you try to think which one of these you sort of prefer the most. And this really leads to the amount of philosophical prejudice that you show when you keep on. I mean, his point at the end is that, with this huge family of supernatural explanations, you can't seem to consider anything apart from your one special magical wizard man, God. And you're just really missing the point here.
I think the question is, why is it given the... why is it given...
Sorry if I'm rambling a bit.
Given the fact that...
The question is, do you disagree with his approach to thinking about the matter?
Okay, that's the question.
Which is my approach, my methodology.
Why do you disagree with the approach taken by Dr. Ahmed?
The 3 arguments? Why did I? No, if you don't dispute a premise, Okay, first of all, he asked me a lead question, I answered it, the lead question about the Bible. Then he gave 3 cases, and I said, never mind, I'm not going to repeat all my arguments. I believe I responded to all 3. In the last case, I gave a very specific, I sort of took the 2 together, but in the last case, I responded specifically to what I took to be a natural hallucination, a natural group hallucination objection, not a supernatural one. I think you lose either way on that if you can argue the naturalistic case. But that was very specific. The first 2 I did lump together when I made my 4 points about general arguments that I would say come from what's called antecedent probability. So I was responding to the first 2, then to the third, and I answered the first question about the Bible before we started. Sorry if you didn't understand my points or you didn't think I addressed them. I believe I did.
To reply?
Thank you. I think the only thing I have to say is simply to observe that we still don't know which of premises 1, 2, 3 in the first argument Gary denies. We still don't know which of premises 1, 2, and 3 in the second argument Gary denies. We haven't seen any good reason, I think, for disputing premise 2 in the third argument, which is the one that he rejects, because, of course, if you're considering supernatural hallucinations, there's no more reason to think, as far as I can see, that they're any more likely than supernatural, they're any less likely than supernatural resurrections.
Okay. And one final question now I think we must have for either side. He's even standing up, like, clearly him.
Well, this question really is about the fact that both of you have been dancing with Hume, and it's more about the nature of knowledge, really. Both of you have said that you wouldn't think that just because scholars say something's true, that makes it true. And yet both of you say that the thing that would convince you is either scholarly consensus or a rigorous, scholarly run scientific experiment. I was just wondering why it is that, despite the fact you say you don't see scholars as being the major defining factor of truth, they feature so prominently in both of your means of getting convinced. Also, just to address your point, Dr. Ahmed, I think one problem one could have with premise 2 is that a supernatural explanation is not one that is by definition unexplainable, it is merely one that isn't natural. So God could have a rationale for his activity that's merely social, so he could be doing it for moral reasons or reasons of agency rather than reasons of causality. So, yeah.
Okay, so first of all, Dr. Ahmed.
Thanks very much. In response to the first question, I think that's a sensible point. I was merely suggesting that this is the best sort of evidence I could have of something if I wasn't there, assuming that we have a case which leaves no natural traces. If you had something like the 8 Days of Darkness, and if they left some natural traces or some other physical traces other than merely testimony, obviously that would be much better, as most historical events, most important historical events do. In reply to the second question, I agree with you that God might have reasons for preferring, for instance, resurrection to group hallucination. The point was not that he might have no reasons, the point is that we have no reason, given the evidence that we actually have, for thinking any one of those is more likely than any other. So not that there are no reasons, but that our evidence gives us none.
Okay. And
I haven't said this tonight. I am hard of hearing. I missed almost the entire question, but I think, please just steer me wrong, what about authorities in the citing of testimony? Was that the first question? Okay. Yes, and as I said in my very, very first statement, I think my third point, was that I think it's very, very important for us to know where authorities start and begin on certain facts, not because a scholarly lay of the land determines the issue, but because if virtually all scholars agree to certain points, left, right, center, and far left, or whatever, however you characterize these, if there's a scholarly lay of the land, it's a fair starting point because there are usually reasons for that scholarly lay of the land. The reasons are more important than the scholarly agreement. Absolutely. I don't know if the second one was for me. I don't know the part about hallucination. But either way, I think you're going to be in trouble. I do think it's more likely that you could argue that God has more reasons to do one than the other. I do not think the natural group hallucination hypothesis is going to work. For those of you who have been waiting for this, I will dispute the first argument, premise 3. Second argument, premise 3. Third argument, premise 2. I thought I made it plain and may not have. I think the resurrection data upset those points. That was my whole point.
okay, well, I thank both of our speakers very much. Yes, I thank them very much. That's it. And now it only remains for me to hand back to Charlie to conclude this evening's proceedings.
Thanks. Why don't we give Sam a big round of applause as well for chairing the whole thing. Well, that's just about it. Thank you very much for coming. And whatever you're celebrating this Easter, I hope you have a very nice break. Thank you.